definitely resonate with the topic that we're on to right now. I mean, I was a New Year's resolution baby. Like, this is how I started my entire fitness journey. Was in 2015. I was like, hey, like, I'm sick of where I'm at. I'm not happy with where I'm at. I had just ended an engagement and it almost broke me. And I knew, so sports, like growing up, I played basketball, I played field hockey, I ran track, I played soccer. That was my way of knowing who I was and like getting the grit, getting the perseverance, getting the discipline, all the things that came with playing a sport, but also being able to show on a weekly basis because you had a coach that like was holding you accountable to practice, and you had team members that were leaning on you to win. But I lost a sense of that as I was going through my early 20s. And so,
welcome to the Good Seed Podcast. I'm Allie.
And I'm Rachel.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today, we're so freaking excited. We have Nikkiey Stott here. She is a total freaking warrior.
She's a queen.
Badass queen. I absolutely love her. I'm super pumped for this episode. So we're going to take it away. So Nikkiey Stott, she's a fitness expert, BSN, and co-founder of Warrior Babe, a program that fights back against mainstream fitness lies and societal expectations that often leave women feeling disempowered, a movement that has helped nearly 20,000 women achieve life-changing transformations. As the former top women's physique pro athlete and current host of the Macro Hour podcast, Nikkiey educates women around the world on mindset, methodologies, and tactics that help women lose body fat, build muscle, grow stronger, and feel insanely confident. So welcome, Nikkiey. I cannot tell you how pumped I am for this. Like,
we're so excited. Thank you for being here.
Like, let's go. Yes.
You're welcome, ladies. I'm stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, love it. So we have a lot of our audience, I'm sure, like myself, has a lot of fitness goals on their vision board, on their goal sheets for 2025. So you are the best person to talk to about that. So could you kind of kick us off and like, what if someone has a fitness goal, or maybe they're getting started in fitness, like where would someone start? Where would they, like, would there be one or two actionable things that they could add into their daily routines to get the maximum results? Or what would your recommendation be?
Yeah. So to give the full context of how I would want to answer this, it's going to be a mixture of both mindset and tactical takeaways. I think that if somebody wants to first make a sustainable, like, I'm sure people are in like the feels right now. They're either not happy with where they're at, they're uncomfortable in their own skin. They have been on the hamster wheel of trying to do diet after diet after diet, and they're still not where they want to be. And they're like, this is the new year, new me. I'm going to show up. I'm going to get after it. I want to make 2025 the year that I've accomplished the goals that I want for myself. And I love that. But I think that first, mindset-wise, if they want to make it something that is sustainable and realistic, they have to first focus on them and bring awareness to themselves of where they're truly at right now and what they may or may not have done in the past that has gotten them success and not success, and bring like that type of understanding that, okay, I am where I am, first of all, because of all of the things that I have specifically done. Like, taking responsibility for where they are, I think, is the most important thing that someone can do, because it's not the programs that they tried. It's not the time. It's not their kid's schedule. It's not that their husband isn't doing the same thing if they have a partner. It has to do with them and them choosing themselves, that they're the ones that need to make the change. So first, bring that type of awareness to their situation, because that type of awareness, like any type of change can happen if they're willing and open to navigate the next things that will come once that awareness is brought. So it starts with the mindset. The mindset's truly like the foundation of it all. Like, I firmly believe, I've talked about this so many times with Warrior Babe, that, you know, macros and workouts and following a new plan is like the tip of the iceberg, but like what's beneath the tip of the iceberg is the perseverance, the willpower, the discipline, the showing up for yourself, keeping the promises to yourself. That's what people, you know, once they achieve goals that a lot of people don't see, which is the bottom of the iceberg, they don't see that. That's truly how someone will get to the end point of where they want to go. So I believe it's like bringing this awareness. Okay, once the awareness is there and it's understood, then you have the ability to make the change. You are truly in control of making the change, whether it's uncomfortable or you're excited or you have some anxiety around it or whatever. You just gotta kind of push through the uncomfortable feelings that you may feel and start making the changes that are necessary, because whatever has led you to where you are right now has to change, or you're going to continue to get the same things. It's that Einstein quote. It's like the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yep.
So once you have that, which it doesn't happen overnight, and if you are someone listening to this episode right now, and it's whenever you air this, and like it's beginning of January or mid-January or whatever, and you aren't holding up the promises that you told yourself that you would on January 1, it is okay. And to just take these kinds of tactics into play, and write down some things, write down what you want to accomplish, write down where you want to be at the end of 2025. And then that'll give you some proof to be able to like, okay, well, I'm not doing these things that I need to do in order to get to where I want to be at the end of 2025. So that would be more the mindset. Tactical, until we wrap up the long-winded answer, is, dude, basics.
Get it done.
Get up, hide, do your 10,000 steps, even 7,500, drink water, get enough sleep, eat healthy. Like, majority of people either don't eat enough or they're eating shit.
Yeah.
Just, and then get to the gym, move your body, movement. So
it's not
long-winded answer, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
it's simple, but it's not easy.
And you're a big preacher of that, right? Like, everyone overcomplicates this so much, and it's just back to basics. But I think the responsibility fact of this, and not only that, is like, what you don't change, you choose. So when you're brutally honest with yourself and you're aware that what you don't change, you choose, and you're, again, bringing your self-awareness to that way you can be like, okay, crap, this is on me. This, just like Nikki said, like, it's not my kid's schedule, it's not my husband's like lazy and laying around, it's not any of that. It's that I keep choosing this day in and day out, and that's thus why I'm still here.
Right.
So being very, very self-aware of that, I think it all starts here. You always say it on your videos, right? Like, your mind will give up first, and then your body, before your body. And another thing that you said on one of your podcasts, because I think we've listened to like all of it, you said that it was like stats that whoever did New Year's resolution by February 1st, how many people, can you elaborate on that? Because to me it was like mind blowing.
Yeah, I just actually heard one at church the other day that was by the 2nd February or 2nd Friday of the new year. Like, what did the preacher, he said 90%? I think that's a little drastic, but I have heard in the past that by April, almost like 80 to 70% of individuals completely fall off of their New Year's resolution goals and what they said they wanted to do, and are not doing it. And that's like a stat from the gyms in the US. So it's crazy.
That is insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So what would you say it's the one thing that can, or not the one thing, I think it's a combination of multiple things always, but how do you do it? Man, you've been doing this for how long?
Did like a switch flip in your brain at some point where you were like, did you get to a point where you're like, oh crap, this is not where I want to be, I've got to change everything? Or was it like a small step? Or how did you get, like, how did you get so consistent and so disciplined to where you are now?
Yeah, I think this will definitely resonate with the topic that we're on to right now. I mean, I was a New Year's resolution baby. Like, this is how I started my entire fitness journey. Was in 2015. I was like, hey, like, I'm sick of where I'm at. I'm not happy with where I'm at. I had just ended an engagement, and it's almost broke me. And I knew, so sports, like growing up, I played basketball, I played field hockey, I ran track, I played soccer. That was my way of knowing who I was, and like getting the grit, getting the perseverance, getting the discipline, all the things that came with playing a sport, but also being able to show on a weekly basis, because you had a coach that like was holding you accountable to practice, and you had team members that were leaning on you to win. But I had lost a sense of that as I was going through my early 20s. And so when I was 25, 2015, it was it was like, this is what I want to do, and I want to get back into the gym. I want to get back into fitness. I want to get back into working out. Didn't know what the hell I was doing though. Like I was Pinteresting things. I was looking on finding workouts online, which I know a lot of women can resonate with. And even for the year prior in 2014, I was trying all of these things that were said were to work. But then in 2015, it was like, it's not working. And I'm somebody that's like, if I'm not getting the feedback immediately, something has to change. And so at the beginning of the year, I started to go into the gym. I first walked up to the treadmills because that was my comfort zone of, I want to just continue to run. But I knew that wasn't going to get me to the goal that I wanted of having more definition, having more muscle, and the things that I was seeing on Instagram, people that looked a certain way that I wanted to look like. And so I made my way down into the weights in an uncomfortable fashion because I was always concerned about what people were thinking or if I'm doing the workout the right way. Like I was totally always in my head in that respect. And I know a lot of women resonate with that too as well. It's like you're uncomfortable walking into the gym. But if you don't take the necessary actions of the person that you want to become, you're going to continue to stay the same. So I knew the person I wanted to become was someone that was fit, strong, and had muscle. The only way that I was going to do that was getting into the weight room. So that drove me to do that. And then all of a sudden, I believe this now because I'm doing a lot more work on this, but I believed it was God's way of, he knew what I wanted to accomplish. And so he started to drop little opportunities my way. And he gave me, through the manager at the gym, he was like, the manager of the gym was like, are you competing? Do you want to compete or whatever? And I was like, I've been thinking about it. I've actually been dreaming about it. So he gave me the coach that was local to the area that I met up with, and immediately just went full send into prepping for my first bodybuilding competition. And I think to bring that story around and back is how I dove into consistency and why I'm consistent and why I show up is like, okay, cool. That day I made myself a promise and I made myself a goal. And it's about keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So like that day I was fully committed to whatever this journey was going to lead me to, because I knew that it was going to bring me to the goal that I wanted to accomplish for myself in 2015. I started out just wanting this idea of having a toned, lean, strong body. And along the way, these things were given to me to take up the opportunity to pursue that path. And it led me to the end of 2015, winning my first pro competition, and then carried on the next 3 years of being in the bodybuilding space. But I ultimately achieved that goal by the end of the year. And it was just, I didn't know what the heck I was doing at the beginning of the year. I knew I had a goal, and I had to just trust in what the plan was for me to follow through on that. And that's where you're going to get commitment checks along the way. God's going to be like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't there was points where I wanted to give up. There's points where I wanted to throw in the towel. There's so many tears along the way. But I understood that there was a goal that I wanted to accomplish. So I had to just continue to keep showing up for myself.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how the story started though, because I think that we've talked about this so many times in this podcast, but I mean, you call me a broken record, but look at where you're at right now. And this started with a heartbreak that almost killed you at the time from an engagement, right? So the Lord, I think that the only way, and there's so many references in the Bible about this, but I won't go into details. I'll be here forever. But how the Lord works for us, and we have absolutely no idea, right? Because this was back in 2015. We're talking 10 years ago. And look at the impact that you've had in so many people's lives, that you've changed so many people's lives. And when you look back, it started from you going to the gym. What kind of fueled it at that point was you were heartbroken, right?
Yeah.
You were absolutely heartbroken. And it's so amazing because when we're in the midst of chaos and trials and when hell breaks loose and you're just like, there's no way I'm surviving this.
Yeah. When you're at rock bottom,
you can't really see it.
Yeah.
You can't see it. Like I think that it's really amazing how the Lord just gets you here, and you really have to lean back in faith and be like, you know what? Surrender. You got me. And
you have a plan that I can't even see
that I can't
right
see.
now. Yeah.
And it goes back again to one of my biggest beliefs, because I really had to work with this. I've always been, well, not always, but when I met the Lord, so I met the Lord, quick backstory, 2018, when I met actually my late husband. I was agnostic. I didn't believe in, I was like, probably die and become a tree. Next life. I was like, eh. So that was me. So he got me to church one day. The Lord started speaking to me since day one through the preacher there. It was really amazing. So long story short, from that, I think it's always been very easy for me to believe, which, I mean, it's a two-way street, because you can get very naive with this as well. So obviously you have to be careful about that. And that's where, like the intuition and getting connected with the Holy Spirit is all about. But I feel like my faith was really, really challenged whenever my late husband passed away. And there's a verse on the Bible that says, all things that happen to you, and don't quote me word for word because I don't know the Bible
work together
word,
for your good.
but all things that work together for the good of you, for those that love me, right? So first, for those that love the Lord. Second, if you love the Lord, every single thing that happens to you, absolutely every single thing, the good, the okay, and the horrible things that you feel that will kill you, will work for the better of you, for the good of you. So for me to stand here and say today, my late husband passed away, the way he passed away when he was 30, with my babies being 7 months and 2 years when this happened, and that happened for the better of me. When you truly to the core believe that, you can really, then you can trust that you have faith. Like, how much faith do you have, and is it movable? Like, it can someone really
tested?
Yeah, when it is on the trial. So I think that it's a really big challenge, but that gets you to the next trial, right? And then when something else happens, you're like, I survived that shit. Like, there's no way I don't survive this. Yeah. Like, you already had my back there, right?
Yeah, it's a proven track record of surviving all of your worst days and seeing them work together for your good.
And it goes back to my faith, at least for me, and for everyone that's listening is probably not like a Christian or whatnot. It's like the higher being, right? So always going back to your faith, because if you truly believe it, like, this happens. Absolutely this happens, right? So it took you 10 years.
Yeah, it's staying, and I don't mean to cut you off there, but it's staying obedient in your faith. And it's also knowing really that God has, because I was in nursing before this, and I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. Yeah, I'm going to, fulfill, I've always wanted to help people. And I thought that was my way of doing it. But God was like, no, sorry. No. He almost kicked me out of nursing school. Yeah. And then he exceeds all expectations that you have for yourself.
And you mentioned how the manager, like, this just happened, and now you know this was the Lord, right? So for us, the podcast, because it gets us so vulnerable. I don't love it. I'm not a fan.
Way outside of our comfort zones.
But the Lord worked so much on my heart. And one day I was praying, and I remember that the Lord kind of spoke to my heart and told me, like, when was the last time you told someone your testimony and what I did for you? And I couldn't remember. And I was like, okay, I'll do the podcast, open the doors. Next week, I met Vanessa, which is our studio recorder. She was just building the podcast room. I told her my story. We kicked it off. That was the first day that we met. And she was like, hey, if you're really doing this podcast, you can do it here for free. And I was like, no, that's not true. Like, no way. And that's when reconfirmation of the Lord starts happening. When you open up your heart, you have to be open to it. I think a lot of people are like, oh, but the Lord doesn't speak to me. It's like, he speaks to everyone. You're probably just not listening. So talking a little bit about that, we've seen your stories because we freaking stalk you. So talking a bit about that and mindset and faith, and like, if you could elaborate a little bit more on your I guess, your most recent journey. And we can kind of like dive
Yeah, have you
into
always been so grounded in your faith, or is that something more recent for you?
It's definitely far more recent, but this is a funny backstory. I mean, I went to Catholic school all the way from sixth grade to my university.
Oh, I didn't know that
But
about you. That's cool.
yeah, so it's pretty wild, and it'll come full circle. But I didn't get my first Holy Communion until eighth grade. I didn't grow up in a religious family. My parents were divorced, and so it just wasn't. The church wasn't a thing that we did. But with Catholic school, I had to go every week, and which was wild from sixth to eighth grade, and then in high school we had to do it. The reason why I went to Catholic school was because it was easy for my parents, being in different towns.
Okay.
I couldn't, if I was in one district, I would have to go to that one school, and then I'd have to live with that parent. But because it was 50-50 split custody, I was back and forth. So that was Catholic. They just landed on Catholic school. But so I haven't always, I was, but I didn't know I was. I was just like, consciously incompetent in that sense.
Yeah.
But coming up into last year, my heart is pounding. There was a situation in which I'm not ready to share, but was tested in how I was going to navigate it for myself, and how I was going to choose myself in the situation rather than continue on with where I was going. And it wasn't easy, but the decision had to be made. And in that moment, I leaned heavily on God to help me, give me the words, give me the understanding, give me the strength to navigate the situation. And I have never felt his work more than I have in the last 3 months. And there's some things along the way that I'm not entirely ready to share, but know that I committed on January 1st to doing one of my friends, and I believe this is God's work too, because I wanted to follow God and build my relationship better with him at the end of 2024. And this was a sign, on social media. One of my friends that lives in St. Louis started his own coffee shop and then turned it into multiple coffee shops. And then now he went from 5 people for the come together during once a week. I forget what it's called, or people all come Bible study, essentially.
Bible study,
people.
small group, maybe. Yeah.
Small groups, yeah. It turned into 200 in St. Louis, and now he's expanded it to be in the online space, and people that have wanted the communities all throughout the U.S. to come into this online space. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, I'm going to sign up for it. And so it's called the 70-Day Disciple.
Okay.
And you have to read the New Testament. You can read the New Testament within 70 days, basically. Oh, nice. So I have been reading Matthew and the first book of the Corinthians right now. And then you have to do a journaling reflection upon it, and then you have to do 15 minutes of walking with God. And there's some weekly things like going to church, doing active service, and then checking in with the community. So that's a little bit about that. So
that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nikkiey. That's amazing. Awesome. That's amazing. And it's my background's pretty similar to yours, where growing up, church was a thing I had to do every week, and I dreaded it, and it was just not, for a long time. I was like, ugh, I don't know, religion, that doesn't sound like my cup of tea, right? But God has a way of in those hard seasons, in those trials, where your faith is truly tested, and you're like, why? What the heck? What is the plan here? And you feel out of control. And then whenever you kind of, like Ali was saying, whenever you surrender, and then you realize hey, I don't have to have it all figured out because someone else does.
God already has a plan written for us.
Yes. Absolutely. Amen. And it's so much greater than anything that we could have ever fathomed.
And it happens in your breaking point.
It does.
Always. For me, it was my breaking point when I was there just looking at him, and I was like, Lord, take this pain away from me, because there's no way a human can survive this. If it's not through you, I cannot. So I was just like, it would be really selfish of me to want to keep this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like my late husband, because we get possessive, right? Because we just want it so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I was like, it's gonna be really hypocritical and selfish of me to hold on to him, to get mad at you, and to resent you because you chose to do what you wanted with his life. But I've been praying every single day. I give you the life of my family. I give you the life of my husband, of my children. And now that you tell me what you're going to do with their life, I'm like, nope, mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hypocritical, right? So it's a power, again, in the faith, and a really, really powerful prayer that I did whenever I started, and a preacher told me this, was pray every night, Lord, reveal your true self to me. And things start happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Start happening, especially when you're hungry for it. Mm-hmm. And I tell you this because you're in like that beginning, like fire and transition, and it's really cool because you really feel the love, like that heart pounding and that like heat stroke that you probably get. Like that's him talking to you. So it's just when you're open to it, amazing things happen.
Yeah,
I think that throughout that whole year that he passed away, the Lord really took care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, in ways I could never, like, again, I could sit here all day. Like, it was just, a CPA called me 3 days after he passed away telling me, I prayed, okay, so after he passed away, I'm going to tell this really quick story because I don't want to shut up, but after he passed away, it was like February. It was the beginning of February, so it was tax season, and we had a pretty decent sized like company. I had to do all the taxes. He's been doing the taxes for 3 years for this company. All of a sudden, I had to do over like 200 1099s that year, and in like 2 weeks' time.
After he passed.
Right after he passed, with the kids, with the company, with everything. And I remember one day I was crying in the office, and I looked up and I was like, help me. Like, help me with this one thing with the taxes. Just help me with this one thing. A lot of people can testify to this. The CPA called me. It was literally a day after. She always knew him, but she called me. She knew that he had passed away because they had an appointment the day after he passed away. So she knew he had passed away, and she called me, and she's like, I had a dream with him. And he told me that I needed to help you. Just take everything to the office and we'll take care of this. So that's one of
powerful.
That's one of the hundreds of things. Yeah, it's just, it happens when you open your heart to it. And I think that a lot of people get into the mindset of, I'm like pissed off at the Lord and this happened and why me, and it's human and it's okay. But now that I have children, my kids could get pissed off at me, man. But I'm doing it for the better of them, right? So if my kid wants a car and he's 10, and I'm like, I'm not getting you a car because you're 10 and you don't know how to drive, and you're going to crash and you're going to probably die. And he's like, okay, I hate you. I'm going to move out. I absolutely hate you. You're the worst mom ever. And he doesn't want to speak to me for like a month. Am I going to give him the keys to a new car because he got mad at me? No. I'm a mom. I'm going to wait for this to pass. And then I'm going to tell him, hey, you'll eventually understand why. So I think that me being a mom and having kids, I really like my view of how the Lord works with us as his children. I understand it more now, but it took me to have that breaking point that I had to be able to speak to this now. So I think it's amazing that you're going through, that you have that group to go through the Bible. I think it's one of the things that I struggle with the most, reading the Bible.
That's amazing that you have that structure too. I feel like that's something that I could always benefit from, of like, because the Bible's so big. Like, where do you start? Like,
Totally, that was my biggest like drawback. I was like, I really want to follow God and understand His words, but I don't know where to start in the Bible. And then this came up. It was like the exact plan. It was like read these chapters, Matthew and the first book of the Corinthians, and then it goes into all of the other of the New Testament. So
that's amazing.
It's like the perfect plan to follow.
That's great. That's great. And then having that community too is so important. I'm gonna have to look into that. Yeah. So in the last, so I guess it's been, you said 3 months. Is that right? Since it's really become a priority?
Yep. The big like event was in August, and then another big event in like October. And then it started really like in November, where I was like, I want to follow God more.
That's amazing. Have you experienced anything in yourself? Like, have you noticed any changes in the last 3 months?
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge changes. I would say that something I feel comfortable talking about, because it's more about coming from me and what I experienced myself, is I felt like I was losing myself in a situation and a dynamic, and it wasn't in aligned with where I wanted to go with my future. And I felt that there was a lot of inconsistency, a lot of unreliableness coming from in my world. And as soon as it started to actually take a huge toll on my self-worth. I feel like that's something that I really struggled with growing up. I have a shit ton of self-confidence. You guys know that. I believe, I have the skills, I have the traits, I have the characteristics. I have self-confidence, but one thing that I've struggled with is feeling like I'm enough, feeling like I'm lovable, and feeling like I'm worthy. And that was becoming more apparent in the situation that I was in. And it was in the moment that I believe God came through me with my energy healer too as well. I know I shared her on Instagram, working with an energy coach for the last couple of months. That was God's work as well. She popped up after I shared something on social media. A friend reached out to me and said, hey, I think you could use working with this individual. And on day one, she asked me a specific question that just sent me on a spiral and into a lot of uncomfortable feelings. But I knew that there was some actions that needed to be taken. Just as like with fitness, it's like if you're not in a place where you don't feel like your best self, trust that you can get to your best self. You just have to take a lot of uncomfortable transitions and put yourself in uncomfortable dynamics. But at the end of the day, if it's what's serving you and your highest good, then it's completely necessary that you go through those situations. And so I started speaking up for myself. I started just having these uncomfortable conversations and how I truly felt. And it only ended up making me stand in my own self-worth a hell of a lot more better. So I'm still navigating, those things, but I'm really proud of where I am, where I was, and where I am now.
I love that so much, Nikki. And we talk about self-worth all the time because that's something I've struggled with too. The podcast we recorded before this one was all about self-worth, as a matter of fact. And so I love that. I love that so much. Have you read Worthy by Jamie Kern-Lena?
I just got the chills. That book, intuition. Like I felt like I was being yelled at in December to download that book and to read that book. And I kept putting it off and I literally just bought it a week and a half ago, and I have been reading it every day pretty much, and it is hands down one of the best books that it's so good.
It's so good. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Girl, I'm like Oprah with this book. Like I have sent it to so many people. Like, what's your address? Like I'm ordering it for you on Amazon right now. It changed my life this past year. Honest to goodness. So that makes me so happy you are reading that.
Rachel mentions her in every other episode.
I really do. I'm just manifesting that she'll be on the podcast one day.
Do it. Keep kicking at it.
I slide her DMs all the time. I really do. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think for me, Nikki, like being able to lean on your worth, and I know we're kind of cutting it on time here. I want to be respectful of your time, but like it's where self-worth and faith meet. Because then you know that you don't have to prove to anyone, prove to a partner or a friend or an employer or the world that you are you are worthy of X because you've accomplished Y, right? Like with leaning on my faith, I realized that I am worthy of love and acceptance and all of these great, beautiful blessings that he's given me because of who I am in my relationship with him, right? Like it's in distinguishing the difference between the self-worth is based on who you are, and self-confidence is what you've accomplished. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's the faith and self-worth are just so intertwined because it just kind of gives you that sigh of relief of like, I'm worthy. There's a plan. God's got this. And even if I'm not where I want to be in my career or my fitness or my finances or any of these things, that means I'm still lovable. I'm still like worthy of the desires of my heart and like all of those things. So, yay. Love that.
I think I've seen you grow so much this past year, though. Like I am, I can testify to this, and it's been really impressive seeing you grow so fast. Because when like this time last year, and again we were just talking about this, or this was actually 2023.
Yeah, when we met.
I forget, it's 2025. Yeah, so 2023. Yeah, it's the people pleasing. It's the stop like. Saying yes to yourself first goes a long way.
Not drawing the boundaries when you should be drawing the boundaries, and prioritizing what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just like fitness, right?
Yeah. Kind of bring it full circle.
It's the consistency behind it. So the more you practice it, the better you get at it.
It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. And I think we kind of lose ourselves, and sometimes, especially I think, notice with the podcast, like I've gotten a couple of people tell me like, well, now you're putting everything out there, so like you can't complain if this or that happens. And I'm like, it's for a bigger purpose, right? If I can impact a life because of my story of the podcast, and that's good for me. I'm not gonna pretend to be someone I'm not, because I'm pretty freaking cool. Like, why would I do that? You know? So, But I think it's the same concept behind fitness. A lot of people are like, well, I've been doing this for a whole month and I don't see change. And it's like, it takes a minute.
This came up in church over the weekend. It was like, don't ask God to have something that you can't hold. So there's so many women that want to accomplish, losing the weight or building a different body, building a new body composition, but like, and they I'm sure in uncomfortable moments they've asked God to give them something, but they don't realize how hard it is to accomplish said goal and to go through changing. Like you have basically at some level of the journey, you have to change behaviors and habits that have been ingrained in you, probably dating back to childhood. And so in order to be ready and prepared and to show God that you're able to hold it, you have to start taking the actions, and you have to start showing up, and you have to, do the things that are required of you to make change. And some people aren't ready for that. And therefore they aren't ready to hold it. So if people want change at the end of the day, like they have to be ready to change. And fitness, like if it was easy, everybody would be doing it,
right?
But
you have to be open to it. And again, it works the same with the Lord. You have to be open to hearing from him.
And then you have to work on your relationship with him like you would work on your relationship with anyone else.
It's the same concept. It's the
100%.
absolutely same concept. And I get a lot of people that tell me, oh, it's easy for you because he speaks to you through dreams. And I'm like, he speaks to you as well, you're just not listening. Or maybe you just don't like what he's saying.
So true.
Or you're not listening, or you're not seeing.
And so it's like when you're open to receive.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're that way with your fitness, you're going to be that way with the Lord. But if you want to get better at it, you have to build the muscle. Just like you just touched on, you have to build the muscle.
The book of life, like the Bible, like just going back to wanting to get better now or connected more with the Lord and with your faith, everything's in there. And if you really think about it, like I love the groups and I love church, and because I get to see everyone's point of view, but at the end of the day, it's perspective. So dissect that yourself. And one of the things that I did when I was reading the Bible and when I started getting connected into my faith back in 2018, whenever I didn't understand something, I would pray for it and I would ask him to reveal what he wanted me to understand from this specific thing, right? So I think
just praying for clarity and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is perspective, right?
Yeah.
But it's the power and the hidden things in the Bible. Another really, really powerful prayer that he says, ask and you shall receive if you ask in my son's name. So if you ask in Jesus' name, and everyone misses that part.
But ask is a verb. Like you still have to put in the work.
Right.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
like faith without action.
That's in Matthew, the book of Matthew. That was something I just read the other day. Ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be given to you. I'm assuming seek and you shall find. It's just,
you have to do the work still.
There's a verse that
you
says,
still have to do the work.
In Jesus' name. And that's where perspective, because we sometimes get a glimpse and we don't finish the sentence. And so ask for connection and you shall receive. You ask in the name of my son. There's multiple times in the Bible where he says that, but I think it's really your perspective. And I think there's levels to this, right? Like anything. So start off, I would say small. Consistency is the biggest thing. Devotionals will help you a lot. If you don't have a daily devotional, like 5-second one, 10, the one that we got, it's super short. And that helps you like open your mind to different stories in the Bible. Yeah. And it's just such
in
a
layman's
cool book.
terms, like, and being able to interpret it.
I love it. I wish I had the time to do a Bible study because I love how I talk about the Bible. Yeah. I have a pretty cool storytelling mode about the Bible. Yeah. I enjoy it so much. It's so interesting. But I think in the beginning of faith, like devotionals could get you there. Yeah. And being open to it, it's the one major thing. Yeah. If you're open, ask and you shall receive.
Ask and you shall receive.
It's always one prayer away. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I love it.
And it all starts with you. Like it all starts with you.
Like everything.
You have the control to make the change. Yes. It's just, are you willing and and if you're not able, ask God for his help.
Absolutely.
Anything in life. So applicable. Yeah. Gosh. Well, Nikkiey, thank you so much. Like, this has been such an insanely amazing conversation. And thank you for being so vulnerable and like talking about your faith. And that's awesome. So thank you so much.
I love seeing that. I absolutely,
Yes. We'll have to join that group. Like, I'm so into this. I'm gonna have to reach out to this community you're talking about. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I wanted to share it with social media. I just don't with social media. I don't know who's gonna chime into the group, but maybe that's just something in my head that I need to get past. But yeah, I definitely want to. I would love to share it with you guys. I believe that's the work of God, sharing the things that are helpful for everyone.
I love it. Do you have any? We always like to end the podcast with like an actionable takeaway. So I know we've like ran the gamut in our conversation today, which is incredible. But do you have like one maybe daily habit that you do, whether it be with faith or fitness, or like if the audience leave this conversation and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this one thing after listening to Nikkiey today, like what would that be?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely going to be uncomfortable for a couple of people, maybe weird at the beginning, but something that I've been on the train of, and I think I'm coming up with my 100 days straight with it, is meditation. When I started all of this journey, it started with meditation, and it started just sitting with God or sitting with yourself and listening to your intuition and listening to what is wiring and firing in your brain. And I started listening to Joe Dispenza, and he's a really good resource if you go to his website. He has free resources. He also has meditations that you can download and listen to. But that's something that whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, it's so important to slow down and just sit with God, sit with yourself, and bring in no judgment to the things that are coming into your mind, but be more curious about what you're hearing. And then if there's things that you need to change, that's the perfect opportunity to do it, is through meditation. I'm like unwiring old beliefs and patterns and rewiring new beliefs and patterns for myself. And you can do that when you sit alone with yourself. You can't do that when you're on the go.
That's so true.
And so much has come of meditation. So there's one thing. It's going to be weird at the beginning. I'll tell you guys that. And who's listening, but just please follow through. Just like anything else is weird and you're going to feel clumsy. I would highly recommend it. It's game changing.
That's amazing. I love Joe
that.
Dispenza, but I didn't know he had those meditations and things. So
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
To
You're
start with.
welcome.
That's
Thank you so much for coming. I was so pumped when you were like, let's go. Let's do it.
I think it's my favorite podcast we've ever done already. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We're so grateful to
see
have
you
you.
again soon, though. So
yeah,
everyone, I hope you guys really enjoyed this.
Yeah, definitely follow Nikkiey on Instagram. She is amazing. She shares about all these aspects that we've just been talking about. So it's at Nikkiey Stott, and we'll link her Instagram in the show notes, as well as Warrior Babe. We all love Warrior Babe. Allie and I both are members there. But definitely follow along with Nikkiey and hit subscribe. Share this podcast with a friend if it really resonated with you. And we'll be here next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow along with us on social media at The Good Seed Media. And stay tuned for all the updates and more information.